Guys, it's time for another episode of IndieView, and on this episode, I have my favorite books of February. All right, well, welcome to IndieView. My name is Chad Nuss. I am your host. I am also the creator, author, artist of the comic book series called The Silence, which you can see in the background there. I'm an indie creator. I love indie comic books and really want to promote and expose as many comic books as I can to as many people as possible. So if you love Marvel and DC, but you haven't really made the transition over to the really good books in indie comics, then this is the show for you. Or if you don't know anything about comic books and you just want a taste of what's out there, then definitely check out these reviews, because I really do a lot of reviews across the board in the indie comic book world. So please, if you like this video, if you like what you see here, check out the Dastardly Dingoes Podcast YouTube channel. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, put some comments on there. We've got a lot of great content coming out. Not only this show, we have a podcast that comes out where we interview indie creators, and we also have a drawing show and a lot of other good content that is coming your way. So please check them out. And I wanted to give a shout out and a thank you to the guys over at Comic Book World Louisville. They didn't ask me to do this. They're not sponsoring this video, but that's where I get my books, and I would highly recommend you go check them out. There's a lot of great comic book shops in Louisville, but that's my pick. They have great customer service. Every time I go in there, they know who I am. They know the books I like. They have a lot of great issues that come out, and they really do promote and focus on indie comics. Let me talk a little bit about the grading system and how I think about these books. I go about it on a 5-point scale from A to D. So if a book gets an A+, that's the highest score you can get, or you may get, as you see this month, an A++. And basically what that means is not only is the book amazing and you should get it each month, but when that hardback collected volume graphic novel comes out, definitely get that, because it's worthy of being on your bookshelf, on a coffee table. It's a beautiful book, and I would highly recommend it. If it gets an A, that means it's one of the best books out there. Definitely check it out every month. If you want an example of what a good indie book is, that's the one to get. If it gets a B, it's not necessarily bad. It's a good book. It's just not my favorite pick, but it might be one that you like. So definitely check it out and see for yourself what you like. If it gets a C, it's not really one that I recommend. I didn't really like it. You may still like it, but not one I recommend. And if it gets a D, basically I'm wondering why this thing got published. So you don't get a whole lot of Ds, but they're still out there every once in a while. And when I'm looking at a book, I'm looking at three main things: world building, or in other words, what is going on in the bigger universe of that story. Can I tell the setting? Can I tell a little bit about the outside of that world? Can I tell a little bit about the bigger picture? That's what I'm looking for. I look at art, everything from the style of art. Does it match the story? To anatomy, to action, to the sequential storytelling. Is it coherent? The line quality, the color, the lettering, all of that goes into the art. And then the third category is storytelling. Is this, as I said before, a coherent story? Is there a beginning and end? Is there a conflict? Is there a resolution? Is there a climax to the story? Is it compelling? How is the story told? What about the dialogue, the narrative? All of those characteristics go into really understanding how good the storytelling is. A couple quick caveats. When I talk indie comics, I'm usually talking about books from companies like Vault or Scout or AWA or Behemoth. A lot of image books, because they're still considered indie in the sense that they're creator controlled and made, or indie creator controlled and made. Boom and Dark Horse, I usually don't do those just because most of their books are more company. Like as a company, they're promoting it. It's not really an individual creator that's making those books. These indie books come across all genres, from sci-fi to horror to mystery. Some of the books have some cursing, some violence, maybe some sexual scenes, those kind of things. So not every book is for everyone, but I wanted to get a pretty large spectrum of what's out there. And this is not everything that came out this month. I don't have the budget or the time to read every indie book that's out. These are just the ones that I picked, and these are the top 20 that I decided to review. And this month, I'm going to do it a bit differently, and I may continue doing it this way. Last month, I went from my least favorite to my most favorite. The reality is these videos are going to be probably about 30-40 minutes, and not a whole lot of people are going to make it all the way to the end. So I want to give you all the good stuff up front. So on this video, we're going to flip it around. I'm going to start with my number 1 and work down to my number 20. Then at the end, I'm going to do a running list of 2021. So each month that these videos come out, I'm going to update that list to tell you what my favorite books of the year are for 2021. So let's get to the reviews. My number 1 book of this month, and probably of all time, is 7 to Eternity. Now, this is number 16. This book came out a couple years ago. There was a little bit of a hiatus, and now they're back to finish it up. So it's not really 2021. It'll end pretty soon, but because it's within this year and it's my favorite book, I definitely wanted to highlight it. This is my ultimate comic book. If I had to put it in one summary sentence, it's a fantasy adventure about the land of Zal and the Mud King, or in other words, the God of Whispers, and the people that either are subjected to him or rebel against him. And you get kind of you see 2 of the main characters here, you follow their story, and everything about it is amazing. But the reason why I get them is because of the art, and what I'm waiting for is for the whole collected series to be done, and then I'm going to read through it all in 1 or 2 sittings because it's that amazing. Jeremy Opeña is probably my favorite comic book artist of all time because of this book. I would highly recommend, obviously, getting the monthly version. And when that graphic novel comes out, I'm definitely gonna get it, put it on my bookshelf. That's my number 1 pick, 7 to Eternity. All right, my number 2 pick. I came onto this book a little bit later, but it's an amazing book, Undiscovered Country. This is from Image Comics. I give this an A++. This has everything I want from a book. It's a sci-fi, dystopian, futuristic story of a time when the United States basically gets sealed off and divided into different colonies, and you follow the events afterwards as there's a group of people that are able to infiltrate the United States and then start traveling around. You see all the action that goes along with their travels. So the things I love about this book, I mean, obviously the artwork in here is top notch. The writing is Scott Snyder. You can't really go wrong with him. One of the best writers in the industry. I love this character, Destiny Man. I love his look. I love everything about him. I have not read all of these either. I've got the trade here. Got the first trade here, so I'm working my way through that, and then catching myself up to issue number 12. I mean, look at the artwork in there. I love the sci-fi look to it. Colors very, very clean. The action pages are gorgeous. There's another action page. Look at that. Awesome. They have this really cool concept of these children they find in here. They're called the Children with No Name. Really, really cool concept. So this is a really cutting edge book. Love it. Definitely my number 2, A++. Definitely check that out. That's Undiscovered Country, number 12. All right, my number 3 book. A+, Department of Truth. And this month, number 6 came out. I would also check out number 5. And the reason why is because there's 2 different art styles in these books. In this book, it's got this real like collage type watercolor, kind of, I want to say like a sketchy type feel to it, which really adds to it being kind of creepy, which I like that a lot about this book. That's what the first 5 issues were like. This issue has more of kind of a cartoon Mike Mignola type feel to it. Different style of storytelling, but within the Department of Truth universe, which I really appreciate. If I had to give like a one sentence summary to this is basically an ongoing conspiracy story behind all the events that happen in politics and culture, the secret behind history. I mean, it really is a breathtaking book. Everything from the art to the storytelling, it's engaging, it's mysterious, it's It's got one of my favorite characters in comic books. Let's see if I can find a quick picture of her. She's like this, it's almost like this demon type woman. She has these X's over her eyes. And of course, now when I'm doing the review, I should have probably marked it because now I can't find a picture of her. But, oh, here it is. Look at that. I mean, look at the design, the colors, the style. She's just a really super creepy. So I would give the world building on this an A+, give the art A++, storytelling A++. This is a great book. Definitely would check it out. The only thing about this, what I'm waiting to see is if conspiracy is enough to make this story ride out long term. You know, if you had that one original idea that drives a book in the beginning, the question is that going to last, 30, 40 issues down the road? So I'm not sure what the future is for this book, but right now it's a wild ride, and I would highly recommend Department of Truth as my number 3 book. All right, my number 4 book from Behemoth Comics, Necromorphis, number 4, and I give this book an A+ for world building, an A for art, and an A+ for storytelling. It's basically about a character that is trapped in a 16-year-old body, but he can change into people that have died simply by touching their remains. This is a beautifully unique idea. I love the character development on this. The artwork, it's got these awesome color covers that are very engaging, and then on the inside you have black and white, which I'm a big fan of, as you can see in the background here. The art is gorgeous. Storytelling is really incredible, and this idea is wonderful. In this issue, there's a bit of a development in the main character where he's almost starting to embrace this power to be able to change into dead people and using it, I don't want to say as a superhero, but as a kind of heroic character. So I'm really excited to see the character development in this book and looking forward to seeing how this book progresses in the next several issues. So that's my number 4 pick, Necromorphis. My number 5 pick is Homesick Pilots, number 3 from Image Comics. I give this an A+, A for world building, A+ for art, and A for storytelling. The basic premise of this is there's a haunted house that's possessed by multiple demons that are kind of lost, and so one of the characters of the Homesick Pilots, which is a teenage band, they go up there, she gets in contact with one of these demons and basically is going to find artifacts that will bring these demons back home. And there's, I think, 6 or 7 demons out there that they're going to trying to find. And in the process, each of their bandmates are starting to become possessed and part of this story. So, as you can see inside, the style of art is very clean, very sharp, very colorful. The storytelling on here is excellent. It's got some really creepy scenes with some really high suspense. I love this little panel right here. That character showed up in the last issue. He's got a horseshoe head. Really awesome. You've got this new character made out of a VHS tape. So yeah, really awesome stuff. So highly recommend. Number 5 pick, Homesick Pilots. Looking forward to what goes on in that story in the next issue. All right, my number 6 pick, crossover number 3. Now, I will say number 4 just dropped this month, and I didn't get a chance to get it, so I will review number 3 because I didn't do that last time. This I would give an A+. This is from Image Comics. A+ on the world building, A+ on the art, and an A++ on the story. This has one of the most original ideas out there right now, and I would highly recommend it on that premise alone. Basically, crossover. You've got comic book characters that are crossing over into real life, and then you're following what happens, how society receives them, how they react to them. It really is an amazing story to see not only what happens when they cross over, but how they cross over, and all of the characters that are introduced into this story. So, I'm not going to give too many spoilers. I will say in these issues, first of all, just look at the artwork there. Incredible. It's got this kind of mix of like modern and old school. The way they distinguish the comic book characters from the regular characters, they put those little color dots. I don't know what you call those. I know they have a particular name, but in the old school comic books, when they would color them, they would use dots, and it wasn't digital or anything like that. So that's how they distinguish the comic book characters from the real characters. So it's got a really unique look, really unique idea. Highly recommend it. Really love this book. The only thing I'm wondering about this, and you'll see in my monthly or my 2021 list, it's kind of for me putting a question in my mind how long or where this is going. Though it has a really unique idea of these comic book characters crossing over into real life, I just wonder how far that's going to go. At this point, what they're doing is starting to introduce known characters like Doctor Strange and Superman and some other ones, but they're doing it in a way that you don't immediately recognize them. So I guess that's how they get around all the trademark infringement and copyright issues. But they just keep introducing more characters, but I'm not seeing where this is going long term. So even though I gave it an A+ for world building and an A++ for story, I'm starting to get to that point where, okay, we need to know where this is going. We need to see bigger picture. We need to see long view. And I think they'll get there. That's why I'm still keeping it as a highly rated book. But I'm going to be watching this one. So that's my number 6 pick, crossover number 3. All right, my number 7 pick is from Scout Comics. This book really blew me away. It's a new book to the countdown. It's Recount, number 1 and number 2 from Scout Comics. I give world building an A, artwork is an A++, and the story is an A++. And the reason why I give it an A++ on the story is because it's like you're watching an action movie, like Jack Ryan, or you're thinking of what's the one with Keanu Reeves? I can't think of that. Either way, you know what I'm talking about. It's very much in that vein of movie. The artwork inside is gorgeous. The sequential storytelling is fantastic. Very easy to follow. The covers are gorgeous. Look at that one. Basically, the summary of the story is a conspiracy type story. Once again, the president gets assassinated by one of their Secret Service members, and then as you follow the story, you start to find out that there's more members of this secret group that are behind the scenes. They start showing up in these like clown, jokerish type outfits and disguises, and it really sets the scene for like, where are these people coming from? What is this group that's behind this? Why did the president get shot? And it really is like an action thriller. You're done with the issue and you want to read more. And so it's riveting, it's dark, it's gritty, it has clear storytelling. I was really blown away by this book and really looking forward to seeing the next issues. My only downside, as I said before, the main character here has a very, very Joker type feel. So I kind of wish it was a different type character, but I still love it. I mean, it's beautiful, wonderful book. That's my number 7, The Recount. Definitely check it out. A+ from Scout Comics. My number 8 book, another Scout Comics book, Children of the Grave, number 2. Continuing this series from last month. World building has an A+. The art, if you see the cover right there, the art in the background, the art inside is also clean, colorful, storytelling A+. Sequential here is gorgeous. Look at that action shot there. The character development in here is fantastic. The priest here who's in charge of the society is evil and twisted. Basically, the scenario of the story, it's a futuristic story about life on Earth in a dystopian society in which this group of people is protected by this group called the Providers, who take care of their food and their protection. But they also teach them like not to go outside their protection because there's evil outside, there's danger out there. It's got very much, if you've seen the movie The Village from M. Night Shyamalan, I think you say his name. Either way, if you've seen The Village, it's very much like that. There's one character here, this guy, Daniel with the axe. He's the one that's going to escape, and you see on the last page kind of a preview of what life is like outside the protection of the providers. So great dystopian story. Really watching that one because I think that one can really get up there in my top 5. It's really a great book, and that's Children of the Grave, number 2. All right, my number 9 is from Aftershock, We Live, number 5. It's an A+ book, world building A+, art A+, story A+. This is a great book, another one of those dystopian, futuristic type stories. I will say I started reading this, I had issues 1 and 2, and then on issue 3, I, for some reason, kind of skipped over it, but I looked again at issue 5 and went back and got the other issues because it really is. I think by issue 2 I just was kind of like, okay, what are we doing here? But by issue 5, it turned around and really fulfilled that question, or answered that question I had, and set up a larger story. And the creators even talk about, like, just be patient with the story because the first 5 issues may seem a bit slow, and it's almost like a prologue to the actual story that's about to happen. And that's exactly what happened here. The artwork and storytelling is incredible. The idea is amazing. I highly recommend this book. It's got some other really cool features in this. If you notice on this page, up in the corner, there's one of those barcode things that you take with your phone. You scan it, and it plays a soundtrack that you can listen to while you're reading the book. I mean, how awesome is that? When I was thinking about my own comic book, I love the idea of having like music in the background as you're reading the book, and they do that with this. So yeah, highly recommend this. The only thing I would say about this that I'm waiting to see what happens is they turn this into a superhero story. And I'm not really a big superhero guy. I'm more into sci-fi, those type of books. So I'm waiting to see what happens with that, but I'm still going to give it an A+. That's my number 9 book, We Live, number 5. My number 10 book, Ice Cream Man, number 23. This is from Image Comics, and I give this an A+. I've not read this book before. This 23 was my introduction to this book, and I have to say I was very pleased with what I saw. Now, the layout of this book is very different than the other issues of Ice Cream Man. As you can see here, it's got a page of visual, and then it's got a narrative on the other page. The other issues that I've kind of scanned through have the comic book sequential artwork. So this is a bit of a different issue, but I have to say I loved the setup here. I loved the story. I loved reading all of that and then seeing the pictures correspond with the story. This comic book itself is arranged around one singular event. I don't want to give too much of a spoiler, but it's this host here. The narrative talks about him, tells about the day. It's surrounding one main event that happened on the show that's super creepy, and it talks about a couple hours before, a couple hours after, what happened, the details behind it. So I loved the way this was presented. I loved how creepy it was. I loved the art style. I definitely want to check out more issues of Ice Cream Man, number 23. Definitely check it out. If you like horror and creepy stories, this is the book for you. That's my number 10 pick, Ice Cream Man, number 23. All right, my number 11 pick is a one-shot comic, Freak Snow, Washed in the Blood by Behemoth Comics, and I give this an A+. Now, here's the thing about this book. I didn't know really how to grade this book. I had seen tons of advertisements. I've seen reviews of this book. I kept hearing rave reviews about how amazing the story was, so I was really looking forward to getting this book. So when I got into it, I was I want to say shocked and confused, and I don't know. This was probably the most original experience I've had with the comic book, and that's been kind of the review that most people have given. When you first open the first couple pages, it's almost like you don't have any idea what's going on, and then it slowly comes into focus, and by the end of it, you know what's going on, and then you walk away like, what just happened? Not in a bad way, like you're so confused by the story you don't know what happened, but just like that was the most unique reading experience I've ever had. And that's how I feel about this book. I mean, if I had to give it like a summary, it's basically there's a young cult survivor who begins hearing the voice of a god named Colt, who is the god of guns, and he becomes more powerful and ascends to the role of a new messiah. And the world building on this is really amazing because you see both the spiritual side of things, you see the gods, and then you see the physical side of things. You see this relationship of the main character in the cult escaping that and then starting to hear the voice of these gods. You see the motive of the gods behind it. There's a lot going on in this book. There's multiple creators on this book, so you have some different style of artwork. Really gorgeous stuff. Here's the different switches to this style when it's up talking about the gods. You get another style when it's down with the cult members. Really unique storytelling here. Just the way they use color. This kind of style of storytelling is usually not my favorite. And honestly, when I first gave this review, I gave it a lower grade because I just didn't know. I don't know what to do with this book. I kind of wanted to give it a B because I wanted to say, look, you're going to have to decide for yourself. The reason why I went with the A+ is because of how different this book was, and I think it was successful in the way that it told the story. So I'm just going to leave it for you here, and just to say, you want to question, is this a groundbreaking book? This just might be one of the great comic books of history, or it might be one of the most, confusing leftover books that people will just forget. I don't know. You'll have to decide for yourself. But this is probably one of the most original comic books I've ever read. So I'm going to leave it for you right there. I give it an A+, maybe a B for you to go check out for yourself. It's turning into a series, so I'm very intrigued to see how the series goes from here. But yeah, that's my number 11, Freak Snow, Washed in the Blood. Number 12, Nuclear Family. Number 1 from Aftershock. I give the world building an A. The art on this, I give an A+. It's beautiful art. The story is an A. Let me give you a little preview. It's kind of got like a Alex Ross kind of painterly style to it. Really gorgeous. Storytelling is very clear, very easy to follow. Beautiful story, beautiful book. It's got an open ending, and I'm just really wondering where this is going to go. You have this family set in Wisconsin in the 1950s. It's a story about them living through a nuclear threat and mysteriously surviving a direct bombing attack and the confusing fallout afterwards. And so I'm just really wondering where this is going to go in a good way. So definitely check this book out. Nuclear Family, number 1 from Aftershock is my number 12 pick. All right, my number 13 pick, Shadow Doctor, number 1 from Aftershock. I give this an A. World building, art, story, all A. Solid book. It's a true life story of Nathaniel Calloway, the mafia, and race relations in America in the 1920s and 30s. If you like biography, this is the book for you. It is literally the story of the artist's grandfather and his attempt to become a medical doctor and the issues he has to deal with in relation to race, him being African American, trying to get a job in a basically a white majority world, and him having to deal with racism, and then also the allure of the mafia and their offer of security and finance and all the things that he was hoping to get through being a doctor. So this gives you a different perspective on what it is to be African American in the 20s and 30s, and I would definitely highly recommend that, especially if you're into biographical type comic books. So that's my number 13, Shadow Doctor, number 1 from Aftershock Comics. Alright, my number 14 is another one-shot from Behemoth Comics. It's A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. I give the world building on this an A, the artwork an A+, and the story an A. This is basically the story about the life of a girl vampire. So if you're into horror, I would highly recommend this book. If you can see the story, the artwork inside, it's all black and white. Very graphic, well designed, beautiful pages. Very easy to read. There's not a lot of narrative, so it's a quick read, but it's a fantastic read. The design of the book as a whole is gorgeous. This is a wonderful book that I would highly recommend. It's striking. It's got an open ending. The way it concludes really leads you to think maybe there's more to issues coming, or it's just one of those that leaves it open, like, your imagination starts running where this could go with this girl vampire. I'm not sure it's as groundbreaking as they wanted to say it was from the reviews I read, but it definitely is a beautiful vampire story if you're into horror and monster comics. Definitely get A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night from Behemoth Comics, my number 14 pick. My number 15 pick is Deep Beyond number 1, and this is part of a 12-part miniseries from Image Comics. I give this book an A-. The world building on this, I give a B. It's good. Still has some unresolved questions to answer. The art on this is an A. It's gorgeous, as you can tell by the front cover, and the story is easy to follow. It's a deep-sea story of a post-apocalyptic world surrounded by the outside world, filled with a deadly gas and killer monsters. I mean, this is your awesome sci-fi action story at its best. It's a setup here with a scientist caught in the beyond and learning about that world, but which makes it very intriguing. And I'll show you some of the pictures inside. The artwork here, you can see some of the sequentials. Very colorful, very clean, easy to follow. The only thing about this that I would find is, and you can see some of the monsters in the outside world there. It's really not like, for my taste, it's exciting. It's an action. There's some action pics there. It's kind of like your typical action film, which can be a bit boring and predictable. Like, you kind of know what's going to happen. You see the setup. You could probably lay out the rest of the story, and that's kind of what this book is. I gave it an A-. I'd probably maybe give it a B+. Have you check it out for yourself. It's probably not going to be one that I will follow throughout the whole series, but I wanted to just highlight it because of the art and the story. If you're really into a good action, deep sea type story with some intrigue in it, I would definitely go for that. That's my number 15 pick, Deep Beyond number 1. Alright, now we're getting into the B's. This is my number 16 pick. This is the Encoded number 1 from Devil's Due Comics. I give this a B+. The world building on this is an A, the art is an A, and the story is B. And this is basically a story about an artificial intelligent robot gone rogue. My first impression, the cover is, I don't know what I want to say about it. It's very attractive, I guess you could say. Insinuates a lot, if you know what I'm saying. But the cover really has nothing to do with the book inside. I think the cover was just really trying to attract a male reader, if you know what I mean. But or a female. You don't know how things go this day and age. But at the end of the day, like, it really had nothing to do with the story. So I was kind of put off by that because I don't like that kind of sales technique. But the art on the inside, clean, good coloring, solid artwork, solid sequential storytelling. The main premise of this is this: whenever there's some issues in the city and the society, they shut everything down so that it becomes almost like pre-internet days where they can't log into anything. They have very little communication, and that's when all the havoc happens. It's a really cool premise. The problem is, to me, that idea is a subset of a bigger story, not the story itself. It's not enough. There's got to be more that's going on here. Just to go back to pre-internet days and to see what happens, that's good, but you need something else, some other conflict that's going on, but that makes that conflict even more intense instead of being the main story itself. That's just my opinion. I'll let you decide. That's why I give it a B+, something for you to check out. That's number 16 being coded number 1. All right, my number 17 book, Sweet Downfall number 1 from Scout Comics. I give this a B. The world building is solid. Still leaves some questions open about the world, the larger world that's going on in this story. The artwork is an A, maybe even an A+. I mean, the detail on this, which I'll show you here in a minute, is just incredible. The story I give an A-. It's good. It's easy to follow. It's basically about a crash test dummy robot that is basically dealing with the mafia. It's got an original, super detailed art, as you can see there. It's an easy, interesting story of this main character. Let's see. I'll show you in the picture. I can show you. That's the main character there. Here's some other really incredible visuals there. I mean, the whole thing, every page that you look at, there's so many details that it really keeps your eye wandering through the whole scene. Some good sequentials there. Really is a gorgeous story. Just for me, it wasn't like enough to keep me hooked. Like you've seen mafia stories before, and it kind of fit into that, where this AI robot's kind of stuck in between what's he gonna do and how is he gonna operate in relationship to the mob, and they're the hooks they get into people. So I like the artwork, but beyond that, wasn't enough for me. You have to go check it out for yourself. That's why I give it a B. That's my number 17 pick, Sweet Downfall number 1. My number 18 pick, Steambound number 1 from Behemoth Comics. I give this a B-. World building is an A. The art is an A. But the story for me is a C. It's set on Pandora. It's about two friends, their struggle with this drug and their addiction called Spider. And just basically them living in the city. You get flashbacks between when they were young and when they were older. But I'm not sure at the end of the day what the point of the story is. It's not really that compelling. It's not really like something there that you want to see more of. It's just basically the relationship of these two characters when they were younger, what it was like when they're older, living in this city. As you can see inside, some really cool artwork. In my opinion, the lettering is a bit off. In many of the pages, the lettering is like really big. Compared to what you're used to with normal comic book lettering. Like I say, the art is good, the coloring is good. There was a typo in it, which really for me took away from it, because I'm thinking if you got editors, you've got multiple people reading through the story, it really should be perfect when it comes to that kind of thing. But whatever, we all make mistakes. Check it out for yourself. You may love it. Not my favorite one. I give it a B-. Steambound number 1 from Behemoth Comics. All right, number 19 is Hollow Heart, number 1 from Vault Comics. I give this a B-. The world building on this, I give a C. There's not a whole lot there when it comes to the larger world. The art here is a B. The story is a B. It's a story about a former human turned AI robot trapped in a dystopian situation in which an innocent mechanic decides to help him out and to rescue him. And it just kind of ends in this pessimistic note of this AI trapped in an inescapable situation. It's dark, it's got a bit of a glimmer of hope. It's a good dystopian type novel, but it needs a bit more to make it compelling. The cover, as you can see here, is excellent, but the art inside, it's just kind of okay. The coloring is beautiful, a lot of good contrast and everything, but the line work and the detail really needs some work. It's good sequentially, like the sequential storytelling is very easy to follow. Which that in and of itself is a great skill set and something that's very difficult to do. But there's just a lot of details when it gets into if you look close up at the line work, that can really be improved. The story is dark, but it's not dark in an engaging way. If you're like me and you like those dark dystopian, you need a twist in there, something to get you engaged. And unfortunately, this doesn't have it. You don't really understand the motivation of the mechanic that wants to go help this AI robot. You don't get much of his backstory. You don't get much of a backstory on the main character. So it needs more to make this a bit more compelling to go on further. But I leave it in your hands. That's a B-, something for you to check out for yourself. That's Hollow Heart #1 from Vault Comics. All right, my last book of the month, my number 20, #1, and this is the second printing. I missed out on the first printing, and the number 2 came out this month, but I wanted to go back to number 1 and read it and check it out. It's from Image Comics, and unfortunately, I give this book a D. Now, I know this is probably a pretty harsh rating to give a book like this, but I think my expectations were pretty high because I'd seen so many advertisements for this book. When I looked at other comics, when I was researching online, there was a ton that I saw out about this book. And the fact that the first printing already sold out and they're already back into a second printing really intrigued me that maybe this was an amazing story. So I went in with really high expectations. I think it was part of the problem here. I didn't think the world building was that great. It's basically about this story of this clown. He loses his job, he gets mugged, he gets shot, and through the whole thing, basically the premise is he just finds a way to be happy. And then it just kind of ends, and the ending is so bizarre. He comes home and he looks at his family, and his family appear as balloon animals, and then the last scene is really him just walking into his home with his wife. And I'm just like, why is he seeing them as balloon animals? Is that part of the theme of he just sees the lighter side of life? And is really that enough for a story to continue on? Like, I just left really disappointed in this book. And like I said, it may have been my high expectations, but it was the kind of book where I just left like, I had no idea what the point of this book is. I don't know why it's out there. I don't want to sound really harsh because I'm an indie creator, and if anyone said that about my book, I'd probably be a little frustrated, but I was not a huge fan of the book. I would not recommend it. It's got a number 2 out already. I may look at it and just see if it redeems itself. But for me, #1 was not the comic that I thought it would be. Now, having said that, let me quickly give you my 2021 ongoing list. And we'll post this somewhere. You'll see it. There's some color coding that goes on with the list. In my selection, if you see it in green, that means it's a new entry this month. If you see it in red, that means it's a book on the rise in my mind. If you see it in blue, that's a book losing momentum to me. If you see it in orange, that's a book that I'm watching specifically. So obviously my top 5 or 6 I'm going to be reading regularly, but there's some other books that I want to see where they go. So let me tell you my 2021 list. My number 1 book so far for the year, obviously, is 7 to Eternity. One of my favorite books of all time. Definitely going to be my number 1 overall. My number 2 is Undiscovered Country for the same reasons. It's a beautiful sci-fi book. Loving the story. Really looking forward to digging into the whole thing. So that's my number 2. My number 3 book is It Eats What Feeds It, and I featured that last month. I was able to get the other number 2. It's a 3-issue limited series. The artwork on that is beyond anything else I've seen. It's Disney quality, horror type story, gorgeous book. It will remain my number 3 favorite for this year. Number 4 is a new book, Department of Truth. Really love the conspiracy aspect of the story, very engaging. I think that will stay strong at number 4, but I'm interested to see how long they ride out the conspiracy and what they're going to do with that story. Number 5 is Homesick Pilots. Love the art, love the story behind it. I love the creepy, engaging quality of the house and the demons and their design and what they look like. So I'm very interested in that story. Number 6, Necromorphis. Big fan of that story. Super original idea. Love the main character, where it's going. So big fan of that book. Number 7, I give a blue. It's losing a bit of momentum for me. I give it a number 7. I'm interested to see where they go. It's one of the more unique ideas in a comic book out right now, but I'm not sure how long they can just go with introducing more comic book characters in it. We'll kind of see where it goes, but for me, it might be losing a bit of momentum. Number 8, The Recount, and number 9, Children of the Grave. Both for me are hot books. They're on the rise. I love them both. I think they're great books, and they really have the potential to rise up in the top 5. Number 10, A Dark Interlude, I reviewed last month. It's got a lot going on in that book. Number 1, I was not enthused about, but number 2 really brought it back for me. A lot going on there. Beautiful world building, some of the best I've seen. So I'm watching that book to see what happens. That one really could rise up. We Live, new book this month. Like I said in my review, wasn't like super hooked by number 3, but number 4 and 5 came back for me, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what goes on with that book. Ice Cream Man, only issue I've read, so I want to look at more back issues, see what happens in the future, see if it is as interesting as the issue I read this month. That could go either way, so my eyes on that book. Number 13, The Red, reviewed that one last month. It only has 1 issue out. I'm still waiting on issue 2, 3, and 4 and ongoing. Great dystopian book. I think it really could have some potential to rise up in the rating. Waiting to see what happens, so I'm watching that book. Number 14, Sam and His Talking Gun. We've got another one of those issues coming out next month. Great action book. Artwork, the design in the first book was fantastic. Really want to see where that goes, so my eyes on that book. Number 15, Stillwater. I need to get more into this book. This one was highly recommended to me from the guys over at Comic Book World Louisville. Really mysterious book, dystopian once again, kind of like Children of the Grave. Intrigued by it, could have some real potential, so I want to go back and look at some back issues there. Number 16, Gung-Ho. I was originally fascinated by this book because of the artwork. It's top notch. It was up there with It Eats What Feeds It. I just found myself not really wanting to buy the next issue. I got to be honest with you. So I may check out a future issue. Kind of cooled off for me after my first impression. So we'll see what goes on with that. Number 17, Freak Snow, Washed in the Blood. Like I said in my review, I have no idea what to think about this book. The minute I love it, I start to hate it. And the minute I hate it, I start to love it. So I put it at 17. Has the potential to rise up. We'll see what we do with it. Number 18, A Girl Walks Home at Night. Once again, a beautiful book. It's a one-shot, maybe one-shot. There might be more. I haven't really looked into it. So we'll kind of see where that goes. It's a gorgeous one-shot. I don't know if it's enough to really raise up beyond number 18, but we'll see what we have in the following months. Number 19, Autumnal. Reviewed that last month. Once again, nice, creepy horror book. Hold steady at number 19. Like the story. We'll see what we have in the future. And number 20, Yasmin. I think Yasmin is concluded as a series. Liked it. It was good, interesting, intriguing story about an Iraqi refugee. We'll see what else they put out and see how it compares with new issues of other books in the future. So, Thank you once again for watching IndieView. That is my review for the month of February and my overall view for the year 2021. I will be back next month with my top 20 picks for March. And until then, keep reading awesome indie books. See you later.